Hello, everyone. Good day, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to the latest episode of Lowdown on Low Code. But before we get started, I want to remind you that it's very beneficial to help us all as a community. There are lots of like-minded folks out there that would love to learn about our podcast. If you find it useful, please like us on your favorite podcast channel, recommend us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll continue to bring this material to the community. I'm John Rymer. I'm a analyst here at analysis.tech, and I am a former Forrester analyst. And with my colleague at the time, Clay Richardson, coined the term low code, which really caught on. And I'm joined today by my partner and friend, Ryan Duguid. Ryan, welcome. How are you, man?
Good. Great to be here today. It's the first day of school in the Pacific Northwest. So my youngest son's out the door, and it's only a couple short years, and then it'll be an empty home, I'm sure.
Well, I can vouch for that. It has its advantages, although it does get quiet at times. Great. So today we're really excited about this episode. We've been trying to get our friend Suresh Sambandam, I always have to concentrate on that, who is the founder and CEO of Kissflow. We've been trying to get Suresh on for a while, and now we've got him. Suresh, welcome. It's a real pleasure to see you again, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, John, for having me on this podcast, and great meeting you, Ryan, as well. Yeah, it's like 9:30 p.m. in the night in here, but I'm still super charged up to talk about it. The only easy part is that this has been something that we should be able to answer anything even if you wake me up on a sleep. And it's probably the same is true for you as well.
You look fresh as a daisy, Suresh. So well done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Suresh, where we start here, and I should say that the really exciting thing for me anyway in this talk and having you on the podcast is you have a long experience building product for citizen developers, and citizen development is a very, very big topic. And there's lots to learn, and it's evolving all the time. So I'd love for you to start by telling us how you got to the point you're at now. Where did you start? How did you recognize the citizen development opportunity, and kind of, how did you end up where you are now?
Yeah. So it all started in my previous company. This was like 20 years ago. Okay. Just for context, my name is Suresh, and I run a software company called Kissflow, which specializes in low-code, no-code platforms. Specifically, we are super specialized on citizen development. But the context for this is I started working. I have 3 patents, and predominantly in the rule-based computing space. So I am the rule engine guys. That's where my career started, and I was just thinking the paradox of rule engines, which is rule engines were supposed to be for business guys to write rules, and the rest of the thing should work like magic, right?
Yeah.
But in 2000s, I used rule engines like Trilogy. My company is called Selectica at the time, and before that I used Talarian's real-time inference engine. And these require sophisticated programming, unimaginable sophisticated programming. And it is like, hey, one hand you're saying is rule engine supposed to be used by business guys. On the other hand, you're saying I want super expert developers to come and configure this. What are we? It's like a joke, right? So, and then we built one of the first rule engines, which we thought we had a great opportunity to democratize this. Okay. So that actually led us to leaving my previous company and starting Kissflow, which is called Kissflow now, but previously it was called OrangeScape, but it was pretty much the same company. So the idea was, okay, the idea for Kissflow came up with saying, we are doing one of these projects, which was a rule engine based project. The project failed. Okay, it was a $5 million project in Los Angeles, LA area. It is a group health insurance company. It's an enterprise license, $5 million in 2004. Okay, it's a pretty big project. And the project did not take off. It failed. And then we went in the retrospective and we found out what did they go back to? If this project failed, they have to go back to something, right? And we were shocked because they went back to Excel. I mean, somebody was computing actuarial analysis, underwriting for a group health insurance company on Excel.
Wow.
Okay. And we were like saying, okay, if that is possible, then there should be a way to use Excel-like front end, but the back end has to be sophisticated like an enterprise application. Okay. Excel simplicity on the front end, but the back end has to be like a proper data store it in a relational data model, no duplicates, audit logging, access control, user-based access control, permission, security, everything has to be magically done on the back end. But the front end has to be like a business user can work on it like an Excel. This was the core idea, Kissflow, and that is the genesis of citizen development, actually speaking. The word citizen development was not coined at that time. So we, in fact, created this category called do-it-yourself platform because we don't know what to call it. So we said, okay, in the US, everybody seems to be like do-it-yourself, right? Like you go to Home Depot and people buy stuff and make a garden stuff. So, okay, it's like do-it-yourself software. So just like how Salesforce said no software for SaaS, we said do-it-yourself for platform. And that's a short summary of how we came into being. And we were one of the pioneers and earliest. We started in 2004, right? Just 20 years ago. And nobody has heard about low code, citizen development. All those terms are alien. And we started at that.
Wow. Where did the name come from, Kissflow?
This happened much later. So this happened in 2011, 12 timeframe. We were pivoting from the original product to go after a use case for a much easier market, go-to-market adoption. So we picked a use case related to workflow automation for no-code workflow automation for business users. So then one of the sales guys, we were naming it. We called it Flow because of workflow. But of course, we couldn't get a 4-letter word, right? No domain, no Twitter handles, nothing you can get with Flow.
You could get it. It would just cost you a lot of money. That's
Absolutely. So, I mean, you were a startup, we couldn't afford that. So we had a competition inside the company, and one of the sales guys came and asked me, hey, what is this one word which can explain the unique differentiation for Flow? And then I said, it should be simple. It should be damn simple. Anybody should be able to use it. And then he went and Googled around and came up with this principle called KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Right. And this is used in World War by the US military in Second World War. They were shipping these equipments airdropping these equipments from the plane to the soldiers in the ground. And they should be able to get this equipment and assemble them like a Lego block with zero manuals, reading zero manuals. And just assemble them and then start shooting, right? And start using the equipment. So this army general came up with this idea, hey, this should be like, keep it simple, stupid, right? Anybody, like, I'm not going to give training to the soldiers because I'm making this equipment. The soldier has went, like 1 year ago to the field. And there's no way I can train him. It should be that simple. And that is when they came up with this KISS principle. And we felt, it's so appropriate for citizen. If citizen development developers have to adopt technology as complex as building enterprise class applications, then it needs to be KISS. So that's how the Kissflow came in.
Got it. I always suspected that, but it's good to have the confirmation. Ryan, over to you.
Yeah. So Suresh, so it's interesting. Obviously, citizen development it covers a broad range of skills, and you mentioned that origin story of Excel, which is always fascinating because I still think Excel is probably the most successful low-code tool of all time. And my first ever introduction to Kissflow goes back to your origin story as you were coming out of OrangeScape and changing the name. And largely back then you were known as the sort of the workflow guys for Google, right? That was kind of a bit of a toehold in the market. And so things have changed and evolved. Now the company's much bigger, platforms more sophisticated, templates, galleries, all this kind of pre-built solutions. So your focus has obviously changed over the year. The target persona or ideal customer profile has changed over the years. So who would you now, fast forward 2024, who's the ideal target customer, buyer, user for the Kissflow platform? And how do you know like these people are going to be successful with our tech versus some other thing that they've been trying?
Yeah. For citizen development, we are targeting. Okay, there is a solid difference between citizen development, which is blessed by enterprise, and business users doing things on their own, which is not blessed, which is actually called as the shadow IT. Right. So the thing that differentiates shadow IT from citizen development is that the company officially blesses a program to democratize application development by enabling business users to be able to do things. If that happens, then it is a citizen development program. If that doesn't happen, it is shadow IT, right? Because there is no blessing. Now, if it is a blessed program, the actual buyer is not the CIO, but is typically the CDO or a chief digital officer or a chief transformation officer or a head of process excellence or head of process improvement, those kind of guys, right? Because they have a charter to do transformation and show massive improvement. And most of the CIO roles have become keeping the lights on kind of an approach, maintaining the systems, the core systems, whether it is the front-end applications or the back-end applications. They're not mostly into big transformations, right? And one of the signals that we look for companies which are ready for transformation or we're embarking on transformation is a CEO hiring a CDO, right? That is a signal the CEO sends to the world that I am embarking on a transformation journey. That's a strong signal because a CDO job is going to be $300,000 to $400,000 on a compensation. And he's not going to be hired as a single person. And he's going to have like 15, 20 people at least reporting to him, direct reports, right? That means you're really talking about $2 million, $3 million budget for just salaries for that team. That means you're talking about another $4 or $5 million for other expenditures. So which means it's a $10 million spend. So when somebody is putting a $10 million spend, then that company is serious about transformation. Except that, and hence we target those folks for citizen development because most of the CDOs think the bigger transformation ideas are not in the middle office, but they are in some sort of a back office systems or customer facing systems. The problem is these CDOs are responsible for giving like few tens of millions dollars of transformations ROI. Otherwise, their organization won't be justified for the spend. My value proposition is if there is a company which is having like a 5,000 employees, the knowledge worker space, we are really talking about, if you do citizen development, we are really talking about easily $30-40 million worth of transformation in the couple of years time frame. That's the opportunity for them.
Right. So with that in mind, you're targeting, like you talked about the back office, the sort of customer facing stuff, and they tend to be big hitting projects that a CDO is going to take on to get the bang for buck. But so is your pitch then more of the kind of what I would call the fat middle, which is the everything in between, because that's oftentimes what gets overlooked with these big pushes, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, both the back office as well as the front office are very critical applications. And because they are critical applications, there are a lot of product companies who have already pre-built solutions for that. Right. Now, you cannot go to a front office application and say, I'm going to use a low-code platform and build the whole domain and build it for you on the platform. They'll say, you know what, I don't have the requirements for that, right? So nobody's going to give you requirements for that. And it's too scary to imagine that you're going to build that whole thing all over again. So I don't think they're going to allow those critical back office applications and critical front office application to be ground up built by somebody. And that is why you see, if you look at Pega or if you look at Appian, they are building proper industry solutions and then selling the solution. When Pega and Appian sells them, they're actually not selling the platform. They're actually selling the solution.
Yeah, app built on the platform.
And it's quite funny, right? You build a platform, but you don't sell the platform, but you build on top of it another solution, and then you sell the solution, right? So, which means you are selling something that you didn't build actually, right? Because the low code, no code is not what you're selling, because you're competing with building a policy administration systems or a claims processing system or some sort of a check clearing system. All that is ready-made solutions that they're built. So the end customer is just buying the end system. They don't care whether it is underlying is built on Pega or Appian or Java or Python, right? And that is why if you go to the thing that became very clear to me is when you go to Bank of America, they have Appian, they have Pega, they have Encore, they have Mendix. I was like, why would somebody buy 4 low-code platforms? You're supposed to buy 1 low-code platform and use it. But why are you buying 4? Because the credit card division bought a credit card solution. It's sold by Pega or something. And some other division bought some other solution. Everybody's buying solutions and nobody's buying platform. Which means it's a fundamental conflict on the value proposition, which is like so startling for me, actually.
So it's an interesting. I think if you were to do a sort of pick any of your 5 leading low-code vendors, go to their website, go to their customer, solution showcase type page, you'd find they all show the exact same logos, right? This is one of the fascinating things, and still something I think for all of us to get to the bottom of. In a large company, it makes sense, right? So if you take, to your point, Bank of America or something like that, there's like tens, hundreds of thousands of employees. It makes sense that different, divisions, departments, whatever it happens to be, purchase different software. It gets fascinating when it gets down a little bit smaller than that, and you still see the same, maybe one of those heavy-hitting platforms you mentioned, maybe 2 or 3 folks who deal with that wide middle, and then a larger set of your shadow IT type systems, right? The collaborative work management tools and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. It'd be good to get your perspective, like in the accounts where you've been most successful. Is it different people picking the different technology, or is there one group that's picking and choosing technology for particular projects based on characteristics? What sort of emerges there?
See, I think it goes back to who's buying. See, if line of business is buying, they don't buy low-code platform. They don't buy platforms. Line of business never buys platforms. Line of business almost always, there are exceptions, of course. I'm not talking about exception. Almost always buys solutions if that is available. See, I am facing a problem. If I am a procurement guy, I'm not thinking, okay, I will go use a low-code platform and build a procurement solution. This doesn't come to me like that naturally in my mind. If I'm a procurement guy, my first thinking is Google for procurement software. I'm not going to Google for how to build procurement software on low-code platform. Nobody in the procurement world is ever going to Google like that, right? So the point is, if I'm a line of business guy, I'm always going to look for a solution. But if I am a domain expert in that area, I know for sure if there is no solution available, then I'm going to look for tools that I can use to build the solution.
Yeah.
That is why you see many low-code platforms are bought because different lines of businesses buy different solutions, and it so happens it's built on some underlying low-code platform, so they end up buying the platform along with the solution. That is why these things are getting proliferated. Multiple low-code platforms get proliferated into the large enterprises. But when you go to specific use cases, it will be, if you go to platform-specific use cases, you won't see this problem. For example, if IT turns out and says, hey, I have 50 applications in my backlog. Now, here are my choices. I'm going to use .NET to build it, or SharePoint to build it, or now Power Apps to build it. But I try something like Power Apps, and after a year, I'm only built 2 or 3 of them. What is the way to clear my backlog? Because I'm not looking at solution, I'm looking at a tool set to clear my backlog. Now, the use case is very clear. The use case is I have a backlog and I need a tool. The IT doesn't think like I want a solution like procurement. The IT thinks I want a tool like a platform to build, like either .NET or Java or Python or SharePoint or Power App. And that is where they think when they try Power Apps and they go through challenges with Power Apps after a year, then they look for other options. Or sometimes when they're evaluating Power Apps itself, they look for options, and then Kissflow comes up. So that's where we go for a pure platform play to solve the backlog for IT. Yeah. So these are the 2 use cases that we solve. For CDOs, we solve the citizen development use case. For IT, we solve the backlog use case, and both of them are platform use cases. We don't sell the solution.
Got it. Thank you. Before we move on, I want to mention that Lowdown on Low Code is brought to you by Analysis.Tech, and we are a group that is devoted solely to providing advice and research on low code, no code, on the whole market. Check us out at Analysis.Tech. You can engage with myself. You can engage with Ryan. Ryan is, I have a background in research. Ryan's background is in product development, product management. We have a chief economist, Andy Bartels. Rob Koplowitz has done a ton of work on digital process automation, as has our colleague Dave Marcus. And lastly, we have Francis Carden in our group, who founded the first RPA company, which he subsequently sold to Pegasystems. So check us out. Love to engage with you. Okay, let's move on.
Hey, John, you talked about the first RPA company. Is that OpenSpan?
It is. It is indeed.
You know one thing? I have the craziest connection to OpenSpan. So they should know me then. You should probably check with him. So we bought OpenSpan licenses. OpenSpan licenses. I think this is an Australia-based company, if I'm right, originally. Correct?
No,
Australia
British.
or New Zealand? British. Okay.
No,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So definitely not America. That much I remember. So we actually integrated Kissflow with OpenSpan when the OpenSpan was a very young company. This was in 2008 or 9, or very, very early. It was not called RPA. It was called screen scraping software.
Yeah.
It was called screen scraping software, and we deployed it in Citibank in India. And we did the Australia fund transfer. Sorry, the process that was implemented was Australia fund transfer. The software came from the British company OpenSpan, and we integrated with Kissflow and rolled it out. And it was one of the most successful projects. And it was a fantastic software, OpenSpan. Yeah.
Well, our friend and colleague Francis Carden will be very, very happy to hear that. Suresh, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
You went in relating your origin story. I mean, you started 20 years ago, and your focus was on business people, empowering business people, the citizen development idea. One of the big questions that we hear from clients are very, very interested in the potential of citizen development, but they stumble over, how do I recognize among my employee base people who are actually going to be successful at this, who are actually going to be good at this? And I wonder what you've learned over the years, because 20 years is a long time to be studying this. What kinds of folks should clients look for?
Yeah. Actually, I would easily discount 10 years of the 20 years in my amateurish journey towards entrepreneurship. Yeah. The first 10 years, John, honestly, I really had no clue of many things in building out a product company, especially, coming out from India, it's a very developing country at the time. Now we are way better off, right? 20 years ago, India GDP was nothing. Now we are like a the massive GDP, the massive growth. We have a lot of Indians running big tech companies in America, whether Sundar or Satya or, the Pepsi, big enterprises are run by, that growth of the Indian founders hasn't happened in 20 years ago, right? So that is the time when I started, and there was no venture ecosystem. I didn't heard about the term VC or angel investors. I haven't heard about those terms. Remember, there was no blogging at the time. The blogging and all came in 2009, 2010 time frame. So the content and knowledge was not yet democratized, right? It is not starting to happen. So we were actually building something in isolation without much connected to the market, and the access to market was not there. Internet was not that pervasive. There was no podcast. There was no, so many things was not there. So we were basically, building it in isolation. So the first 10 years was literally, I didn't really do much in the citizen development, except although the original idea was to democratize business users. So, but the last 10 years, we have absolutely been doing a phenomenal job in that area. So we have a lot of knowledge which we collected in the last 10 years for sure. So the crux of this is the fundamental mistake of bucketing everybody as a citizen developer. Any business user who's outside of IT, considering them as citizen development is the fundamental fatal flaw. Okay. So inside of the IT is not a citizen developer. They fall under two buckets. One is end users who will never be citizen developers. For them, it doesn't matter whether IT developed the solution and gave it to them, or someone else developed the solution and gave it to them. They just have to be told how to use it, where to click, what to fill, what to submit, and done. And what to download and how to take a report and use it. That's all it is. This population is 97% of non-IT workforce. Like, for example, if you have a 5,000 employee organization and let's say 200 people are working in IT, meaning 4,800 people. In this 4,800 people, 97 to 98% of people fall under this end user category who are never going to be developing applications that much. And there is going to be 3%, 2 to 3% of people. Let's say 5,000 means, 2% is what? 3% of 5,000 is 150 people or something. Right? These 150 people are the guys who are citizen developers. These are the guys, and each one of these 150 people is actually connected to 50 people. They're like teams of 50 people. They automate a process or bunch of processes is going to affect like 50 to 100 people. And collectively, these 150 people will touch the remaining, 4,800 people, 4,700 people in the organization. And these each 150 people, even if they do one or two processes each, we're talking about 300, 400 processes getting automated and transformed, which was not done before. Right. And those 300, 400 process transformation is massive. And the organization can, just think about it, John. Let's take a 5% productivity improvement, just 5%, a single digit number, right? Low single digit number of a 5,000 employee organization. And they're paying $100,000 salary. It's a staggering transformation impact. And that is the opportunity of citizen development.
Suresh, so out of this very select group, 2-3%, how do you recognize them? What sort of characteristics do you look for someone who can play that role?
They are almost always owners of a process. For example, if you take a HR function, because I'm using not a line of business function, I'm using a horizontal function so that everybody in the audience can understand the example. But the maximum value is derived from line of business function, not from the horizontal functions. Because for horizontal functions, mostly there is some out-of-the-box products that are available because they're generally generic enough so that you don't really need citizen development there. People can buy ready-made solutions for horizontal function. It is those vertical line of business functions where citizen development will be the maximum requirement. Because you don't find a lot of TAM, total addressable market, to build ready-made products for those specific line of business applications. Right? That's what I'm saying. In the last 10 years, we understood this. First 20 years, we had no clue about all of these things. Right? So if you, for the namesake, let's take a HR function. Hiring manager, like for example, the manager or the director who's hiring, and let's say there are 15 people who are hiring for the company. The 15 people are end users. They won't know how to put together a process. They don't know, like say when there's a new job request comes in, who's eligible to request, who should approve that, who should go certify that, ratify that, what will be the compensation, when will finance come in. All this knowledge, end user, hiring guys won't know. But the head of this hiring, the departmental owner or the process owner, she will know, or he or she will know clearly how the process needs to work. So this is a person who knows how to draw that process map on a board and clearly explain who's owner for that. Almost always it's easy to identify them by the ownership of the process. Who's owning the process?
Got it. I just want to highlight one thing. You said to me in a conversation we had months ago, 3% maybe is what you should expect, 3% of your employee population. We just today dropped the second episode we recorded with Paul Kobliansky, who you know, at Shell. And they've got 4,000. And their employee population is north of 100,000. So there's a point that proves your percentage, Suresh. Anyway,
I actually
Suresh,
checked. I will tell you one more number. We have 18,000 employees in Bank of Philippines who are using Kissflow, and 2% is roughly 360 people, and they have around 200 or 220 people using citizen development, and they have automated 600 or 700 processes, roughly 2 or 3 per person. If the entire bank's middle office runs on these processes on running on Kissflow. So I have examples like that. We have a lot of big enterprises that are using citizen development on Kissflow, and if you look at that number, it's roughly between anywhere between 1 to 3%.
Got it.
So I think, Suresh, we could probably talk for a good solid hour on the 3% and how you might make the 3%, 5%, or 10%, and the view that anyone can do this versus who has the hopes, dreams, and aspirations to do it. One thing that I think a lot of people are hopeful for right now is that with the surge in popularity of generative AI, that somehow will change this dynamic, right? So the theory would say, okay, we're at 3%, so it's still too hard. The systems are still too complex, even drag and drop with no code. You brought up the point there that this sort of set of end users don't know how to define a business process, might not even know what a business process is, right? So how do you think about AI? Is this something that you think you can use to shift that dynamic so that if you can type what you want, then you'll get an application? Or does someone just still end up looking at a blank prompt screen saying, I don't even know what to type? And if that's the case, how are you thinking about bringing this technology into your platform to advance the low-code cause?
Ryan, that was a fantastic question, because if you really look at citizen development, the crux of the problem is filling semantic gap. Right? The semantic gap is really the way human beings think versus the way you program the computer. There is a gap. And the more we reduce the gap, the more easier we're going to make for citizen development. But the problem is, most of us, until Gen AI, thought drag and drop is that way to reduce the semantic gap. But the problem is, by doing drag and drop, we introduce another semantic layer on top of programming, right? So now you need to understand all these drag and drop tools, how do they wire each other? Oh, I click this button, you have to go there, and there is an event that's coming up there. Oh, you have to catch that event there, and all of that. We thought we were solving some problem and introduced another set of problems. It was okay when the problems were simple. When you're trying to do sophisticated stuff, the semantic gap that we're supposed to solve, we added another layer of semantic challenges, and the citizen developers are actually not able to do it. That's the real problem. So with GenAI, with Kissflow, we have completely cracked the ability to use natural language and build the entire process with zero semantic gap. It is right now available in Kissflow as we speak. Somebody can actually type an English natural language text and roll out a complete process in production just like that. It just works. That is today's possible. But this does not mean the 3% is going to change.
Right.
The reason I'm saying that is the 3% is not just a technical limitation. It's not like, hey, I don't know. So only 3% of the people have the technical knowledge to do this. No. Yes, that is a problem. But the 3% of the people have the process knowledge. But the remaining people do not have the process knowledge. Even if they have the tool knowledge, they don't have the process knowledge. And they also do not have the organizational authority to roll out the process and control the process. And that is why the 3% is a magic number. Not because of the tool limitation. The tool limitation, yes, is going to reduce the 3% to 0.3% maybe. Because of the tool limitation, now the 3%, only 0.3% people can even do it because they can learn that low code, no code semantics. But with GenAI, we can completely enable the entire 3% into the system. Maybe the 3 can become 5, but it's never going to be like 50%.
And you make, along the way, you make the 3 to 5 more productive, right? Which has sort of been the goal over time.
Exactly.
Yep.
Faster time to solution too, I would imagine.
Yeah. See, most importantly, you don't have to think a lot of stuff. For example, so in today's low-code platforms, are very complex. Like one of the things that GenAI is going to do is we do something called disposable applications. See, the biggest problem in low-code platforms is still there is this notion of developer-user paradigm. Before a user could do something, a developer has to create something and provision it. Then only the user can use it. User cannot use something which a developer has not developed, whether it be citizen developer or low-code developer or professional developer. It doesn't matter. But some developer has to develop something, then only the end user can use it, which means before end user using something, you cannot, do anything. So, but with GenAI, we can enable end users to create what is called as disposable application, although it is not considered as citizen development. But this will be like, hey, can you call out all these customers who belong to New York and send them an invitation for a podcast I'm doing?
Right.
And
right.
This functionality is not there in any system. Right? Now, if you want to do this, then you have to go send a request. Even if it is a citizen developer, he still has to develop it, put it some page, put some buttons, do this, and then give now you go try it. Now, but this is just a one-time thing. With platforms which are GenAI powered, you are going to be able to deliver this disposable application, which is going to be developed on the fly and then used and thrown away. But the basic framework of the application has to be there. But the end user impose can be composable and dynamically wired, right? Because the services are going to be running there and you can mix and match the services in any form that you want and build end applications without having a developer in the place, right? So that is going to be very, very powerful. And this can actually be bigger number, Ryan. So this number is, I'm not considering them as developers. I'm considering them as users who are, it's like you will be using ChatGPT and talking to OpenAI. You don't consider the ChatGPT users as developers.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Right. Interesting. Right. Suresh, thank you so much for staying up late to talk to us and for suffering our questions. Very, 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 very enlightening session. I'm so glad we were able to get you on as a guest on Lowdown on Low Code. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ryan.
For those of you who hung in with us this long, Thank you for joining. Like us on our YouTube channel, Lowdown on Low Code. Like us on your favorite podcasting platform. Tell your friends and relatives if this is useful to them. Like it, and we'll start to get the word out to more folks, and we'll all learn a lot more about the potentialities of low code. Thanks, everyone, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Awesome. Thanks.